The Retroid Pocket 5 is still the newest flagship device in the Retroid lineup, and should stay there for most of 2025. The handheld was acclaimed and lauded as one of the best retro gaming devices ever made. Let's take a look at what the experience is to make this thing your go-to handheld, and if it's still the right purchase to make right now. So the Retroid Pocket 5, while released near the end of 2024, is still, for the time being, Retroid's flagship device. And even the Retroid Pocket Flip 2 is going to be essentially the same thing, just in a different form factor. But I kept hearing amazing things about the Retroid Pocket 5. And you know, my history with Retroid goes way back. I bought the Retroid Pocket 2. This is the 2, not the 2 Plus or the 2S. The 2 without a touchscreen. Navigating Android without a touchscreen sucks. And I bought my girlfriend the Retroid Pocket 3, which she never uses.
Wait, wait a minute. そんなに軽くはないし、俺の勝ち20億万ベリー。Wait, wait a minute.
The unboxing is pretty straightforward. The Retroid devices come in these neat magnetic boxes. The Retroid Pocket 5 comes in 4 colorways. There's the white, like I have. There is the GC, which obviously is the GameCube colorway. There is the 16-bit, which is Super Famicom colored. And then there is the black, which looks absolutely brilliant. And I kind of wish I would have gotten the black one, especially with this OLED screen, which I have to say, this screen is the highlight of this device. It is a 1080p 5.5-inch OLED screen. It gets bright without being harsh. It gets dim. The colors look so vibrant. It feels like it's just part of the glass that it's just beneath. That being said, the build quality on the Retroid Pocket 5 is outstanding. It feels like a device that Nintendo would make. More premium than a Switch Lite. The glass front, the LED joysticks, the front-facing speakers, even the buttons feel really, really nice. I have 2 complaints physically with the Retroid Pocket 5 though. The first is the grips on these are just inadequate. You kind of feel like you have to hold it out on your fingertips. And then the other thing is I don't love the triggers. With most triggers, you know, the fulcrum is inset so that you can push it down and it kind of rotates into the device. With these triggers, they rotate like halfway back, and so you have to push them on a swivel. So you can't push down on them. You have to rotate them around to push them down. Aside from me wishing that the joysticks were offset for more modern games, I do have a little workaround when it comes to improving the ergonomics, and especially those triggers and the joystick positions that we'll get to a little bit later in the episode. Now, something we should go over is this is an Android device, and if you have any history or knowledge of, you know, these retro handheld consoles, they are all Linux based and they come preloaded. They usually have a dump of ROMs. They have the emulators pre-installed. Unless you really want to tinker with it, you can just turn it on and start playing games. This is different. Because it's Android based, you have to set up your Google account and set up the Play Store and download your emulators and pick a front end. This whole process, it doesn't even come with an SD card. This device takes some setup, and depending on your comfortability with that, there's those of us that love this type of thing where we get the device, we get to fine tune it exactly as we want. We configure our shaders, we figure out our box art and organize all our ROMs and our BIOS and get everything working just perfectly. And then we set it aside and go find the next device. If that's you, we're cool. If that's not you, this may be a little daunting for setup, especially if you don't know how to find BIOS files or ROM files or what format your ROM files need to be in. You'll get used to going into Chrome and on GitHub to find repositories, get APK files to download these pieces of software for your Android. But that said, when you do get it up and running, it is such a satisfying experience. And because of the a little bit extra work to set it up, it almost makes me feel like I earn the privilege of playing these amazing games on this device. So some of the things I've put on here, obviously the emulators, mostly RetroArch. I use Dolphin for my GameCube emulation. I use Sudachi for Switch emulation. PPSSPP, you have to download that. I use Obtainium, which is an app that will find certain apps on GitHub and automatically update them when they update on GitHub, so you don't have to go and update them manually, which is really nice. I use Emulation Station. It's ESDE for my launcher, for my front end, and it's beautiful. There's lots of great themes and it's a really cool interface, but getting non-emulator apps in here is kind of a pain, and so I use ES App Launcher to put Android games and other Android apps into ESDE, so I don't have to go back to the other front end. And so we'll get into more of the performance and these apps that I'm using to play these games shortly. In terms of how the device works, it'll sleep for days, which is great because these devices, I feel like they die after a day or two. I can come up to my Retroid and I won't have used it for 2 or 3 days and it'll still be at 85%, which is awesome. And I feel like the battery life lasts all day. There's nothing more annoying than having one of these devices that's just always dead. Feels like it defeats the entire purpose of having them. I feel like I rarely charge it and it just always has battery. Love it. Some of the apps that I did pay for, I did pay for the N64 emulator, a few bucks in the Play Store. I paid like, I think it's $5 to the Patreon for ESDE to get that. You can pay for PPSSPP just to support the devs, which you should go do that. I also paid $2 to Screen Scraper, which harvests all your artwork and video files when you're navigating inside the front end. That said, all the people behind the software that these devices run on are absolute geniuses. Be sure to follow along with these projects and support where you can, especially if you're getting a lot out of it. This video is not gonna be a walkthrough on how to set this device up. There's great videos by Russ from Retro Game Core, Joey's Retro Handhelds, and many more. I'll link some in the description if you want a step-by-step walkthrough on how to set this device up. I'm trying to give you a heads up of what you're about to get yourself into. And so after you've got everything set up, it's a beautiful interface. I went with the colorful, simplified theme. When you go into a system, you can see the box art. If you wait for a second, it'll start playing a video from the game, which is great if you're just looking for something random to play. And if you leave it sitting for a while, it goes into what's called attract mode. It starts playing random videos of all the games that you have loaded on here, which is cool because if you're seeing them play and you push A on it, then it'll boot straight into that game and you can just pick up and play it. I even hooked it up to my Trinitron CRT, which is a blast to just have it playing these old games automatically because it does have video out and Bluetooth controller support. You can consoleize this very, very easily. I just use my dongle that I use for my Steam Deck. And so when it comes to performance up through PS2 and GameCube, this thing just destroys performance wise. You can run PS2 at 2 to 3x resolution internally, which makes PlayStation 2 games look beautiful. Same with GameCube. If you're running on Dolphin, you get these high res upscales. There's widescreen hacks, Dreamcast, PS2, GameCube games all look absolutely beautiful, run games flawlessly, and everything before that obviously works fantastic. PSP, you can run at 4x. And what I love about having more powerful hardware in these is you can run these beautiful shaders and overlays on your consoles, which I've never really dug into before this. And so I kind of use this as an opportunity to really start playing around with these shaders. And I have to say, I found some amazing things on all the consoles that are like home consoles, non-handhelds basically. I use the CRT GDV Mini Ultra, and this does so many things. It adds the CRT look, it curves the edges, it even adds some type of projection. It's most clearly visible on the Dreamcast boot up screen. You can kind of see some ghosting of how the projection of the CRT would be on the front of the CRT screen. It's just, it looks absolutely beautiful. Everything runs so smooth and you don't even have to think about it. And then on handheld devices that use like kind of LCD type of panels, I use the LCD 3X shader. It looks great, like Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Game Gear. I've always just written off shaders in general. I thought it was just adding a grid on top of your screen to make it darker and look worse. I couldn't have been further wrong. And so if you have a device like this, check out these shaders that come bundled with RetroArch. And on top of that, I do an overlay from the LibRetro forums. It is the Exodus CRT collection. There's a bunch of them, and I just use the classic CRT overlay. It looks great with the OLED screen because I use the dark one. With the CRT shader that kind of curves the edges, the overlay curves along with it, and it looks fantastic. You get a little overscan. Now, when it comes to Switch, Wii U games, it's really hit or miss when it comes to performance. There's games that will work great. There's games that will work good on some emulators and then not run at all on other emulators. And so it's going to be really hit or miss. There's really nothing out there that emulates Switch perfectly. But if you really, really want to tinker with it, you can get a lot of games running really well on this. But those games, along with DS and 3DS, I don't like emulating those on this type of handheld. They have specific hardware, so I didn't test a lot of those, but I know they run great on here. Something that I wasn't expecting is I've been playing a lot of Android games, like native Android games, which I didn't even think about when I got this thing. Specifically because I have Netflix. You know how they've been pushing all their mobile games on you? I do not play games on my phone at all, but this has the Play Store on it. And so I downloaded Monument Valley and Katana Zero and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and so many other games that are free with Netflix, and they just play and they work great and they run great and they're beautiful and they're games that I would love to play on this type of device. I was blown away. Alongside, I just got into Call of Duty Mobile, which looks way better than I realized it would, and it works with the controls. Genshin Impact. That caught me off guard that you can just play these really powerful Android games natively on this device. Now, if you are playing Call of Duty Mobile, you have to switch the controls to the Xbox style, and you have to go through the entire tutorial, which includes playing around with the touchscreen, and then it'll enable the controls. I think they just want to make sure you know how to use the touchscreen first. The other great thing is game streaming. I've been using Steam Link to play my Steam games, Forza Horizon 5, some Halo, and it works beautifully, especially on this OLED screen. Makes everything look so good. There's also Winlator, and you can install native Windows games and apps on here. You can get this device for under $200 with a coupon through AliExpress, and nothing touches it at that price point. It just does so much. I have my Steam Deck, which is great. Anything that's like a PC handheld, it's going to be way more expensive. And then the only other thing that's like a notch up from this is like the Ein Odin 2 Portal, which is a beautiful and wonderful device, but that thing starts over $100 more than this. I think it starts at $330 plus shipping. And with this device, you can put on Rocknix, which is a Linux operating system, and make it like one of these, or you can play Xbox really crappily. I have fallen in love with this device. Now, for what I was saying about fixing the ergonomics, which I don't love, I spent days and days and days printing all the different types of grips and shells, everything I could find on printables and stuff like that. So I found this shell cover protector thing, which I loved. It was brilliant. And I got it printed, you know, after several failed attempts, but it didn't satisfy my need for having grippy handles. And so what I did was I took some handles, shoved them onto the model, and printed that. And that has been my favorite to use this with. It makes the triggers feel more comfortable. It makes using the joysticks feel more comfortable. And you can take it off and flip it over, and it protects. Credit to the designer. And if you do want to download the case grip that I modified, I'll have a link in the description also. But yeah, I love this thing. Are you going to pick up a Retroid Pocket 5 in 2025? This has been something that has gotten me just absolutely giddy. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you soon. Have a good week. Let me know what you think about the Switch 2 reveal. I can't wait for that either. Man, too much shit to buy. Take it easy. Cheers.